He noticed her before she noticed him, not because she entered the room, but because the room changed when she did. The laughter from the kitchen softened. The clinking of glasses faded. Even the sunlight seemed to pause on her as she stepped inside, her hair catching the warm edge of late afternoon, her perfume following a half-second behind. She wasn't dressed for attention. Just jeans, a loose white blouse, sleeves rolled up. But there was something in the way she carried herself. Calm, certain, a quiet gravity that made everything else seem slightly off balance. "Thanks for helping out, Noah," she said, smiling. That polite, practiced kind of smile you give your son's friend. He tried to answer, but his throat caught. He just nodded and lifted another box from the hallway, pretending not to notice how close she'd come to take one from his hands. Her nails brushed his skin, just a graze. But it was enough to make him forget what he was doing. She didn't pull back right away. And for a second, just a breath too long, her fingers stayed there. Warm, steady, like she was about to say something else, but didn't. Then she cleared her throat, turned toward the living room, and he told himself he'd imagined it. He'd only meant to drop by. His friend, Evan, had asked if he could help move some furniture before the painters arrived. A simple favor. He hadn't expected her to be home. But she was barefoot, hair tied up, moving around the house with that easy kind of focus people get when they've already made peace with being watched. He tried not to. God, he tried. But every time she passed, he caught himself following her reflection in the window, the soft dip of her shoulder as she leaned over a stack of books, the way she paused sometimes, like she could feel his eyes on her. When Evan left to grab more supplies, the silence changed. The house suddenly felt too big, too still. She came into the living room holding 2 glasses of water. "You've been at it for an hour," she said, setting one near him. "You should take a break." "Thanks," he managed. His voice sounded different, lower, careful. She sat on the arm of the sofa, one knee slightly angled toward him. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that the air felt charged. "You're a good friend," she said after a moment, smiling again, softer this time. "Evan doesn't always deserve that." He laughed quietly. "He's lucky to have you for a mom." She tilted her head. "Am I?" Something in her tone, not teasing exactly, not serious either, made him glance up. Their eyes met, and for the first time, neither of them looked away. There was no music, no flicker of dramatic light. Just the steady hum of the refrigerator, the faint scent of rain through the open window, and the sound of her slow, even breathing. She reached out, maybe to thank him again, maybe just to fill the silence. But when her fingers found his, they stayed. He didn't move, didn't speak. The world shrank to the small space between their hands. She looked at their joined fingers as if she'd done something she couldn't undo. Then, softly, "You should probably get going soon." Her voice wasn't cold, just unsteady. He nodded, but neither of them moved. Then, a sudden sound. The sharp buzz of a phone on the counter. Her eyes flicked toward it. His hand was still under hers. For a long moment, neither reached for the phone. The vibration stopped. The silence felt heavier now, full of what almost happened, and what still might. And somewhere down the hall, a door creaked open. For a week, he told himself it hadn't meant anything. That moment, her hand over his, the way her breath caught before she pulled away, it was nothing more than gratitude stretched too long. But every night, when he passed their street, he slowed down. Sometimes he saw her car in the driveway. Sometimes the porch light was still on. Sometimes nothing but the soft flicker of a TV behind curtains. Each time, something inside him tightened. Not desire, exactly, but a pull. When Evan texted asking if he could stop by to grab the drill he'd left behind, Noah said yes too quickly. She opened the door before he could knock twice. "Oh," she said, surprised. "Evan's not here. He ran out for a bit." "I know. He told me I could just grab the drill." "Right." She stepped aside, and he entered. The same faint smell of jasmine hung in the air. Her hair was loose this time, a strand caught on the collar of her sweater. She tucked it behind her ear as he passed, her bracelet sliding down her wrist with a soft clink. He noticed everything he shouldn't. "You've been keeping busy?" she asked, trying for casualness. He nodded. "Work mostly. Classes." She smiled faintly. "I remember those years. You think you're supposed to have it all figured out, but you're mostly just pretending." He looked up at her then, really looked. The tiredness under her eyes, the faint lines that deepened when she smiled. There was something raw there, something he hadn't noticed before. You sound like you're talking about yourself, he said quietly. Her gaze flickered. Maybe I am. They sat at the kitchen table without meaning to. The drill sat forgotten on the counter. She poured coffee for both of them, though it was late enough that neither needed it. I used to be married, she said suddenly, eyes on the steam. Almost 20 years. He didn't know what to say, so he waited. He left 3 summers ago. Nothing dramatic. Just distance that stopped pretending to be anything else. She gave a soft laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. I never really learned how to be alone, she added, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. Now I think I've gotten too good at it. Noah leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table. You don't seem alone. She looked at him, a long, unreadable look. That's the trick. The clock ticked between them. He wanted to say something that would break it, something that would make her laugh again. But words felt clumsy against what hung in the air. This quiet recognition of something both of them weren't supposed to name. Her hand moved slightly, brushing against his where it rested on the table. Neither of them pulled away this time. The sound of the refrigerator kicking on filled the silence. Too loud, too ordinary for the moment it interrupted. She looked down, eyes on their almost touch. This isn't fair, she murmured. You're just a kid. He shook his head. I don't feel like one right now. She closed her eyes, a breath escaping her that sounded like surrender or maybe regret. And when she opened them again, he saw it. The same hesitation, the same want, softened now by something else. Something dangerously close to need. Outside, a car pulled into the driveway. Evans. Their hands separated just before the headlights swept across the kitchen floor. But even as she stood and smoothed her sweater, her voice steady again. The warmth of that almost touch lingered, like a secret neither of them had agreed to keep, but already did. Rain had been falling all afternoon, steady, soft, the kind that blurs everything outside into silver. Evan had left again, muttering something about errands. It was supposed to be a quick stop. Noah told himself he'd only wait 10 minutes. Long enough to be polite. Long enough not to look like he wanted to stay. But she was there, in the living room this time, sitting on the floor surrounded by open photo albums. Her sweater sleeves pushed up, bare feet tucked beneath her. Didn't think anyone still printed photos anymore, he said from the doorway. She looked up, surprised, then smiled. That careful kind of smile people use when they've already been caught remembering. Some things are better when you can touch them, she said softly. He stepped closer. That from before Evan was born. Most of it. She turned a page, her fingers brushing a picture of a younger version of herself, sunburned, laughing, a man's arm around her shoulders. You look happy, he said. I was. The simplicity of it made something in his chest twist. Her hand lingered on the photo, tracing the edge of the man's sleeve. It's strange, she murmured. You think you'll never forget someone's face, but time has a way of sanding things down. Noah knelt beside her. The scent of her perfume mixed with the faint smell of rain through the window. Does it ever stop feeling strange? He asked. She looked at him then, really looked. No. You just learn to stop flinching when it does. The power flickered once, then went out completely. The room dimmed into gray light and silence. She gave a quiet, startled laugh. Of course. He reached for his phone to use as a flashlight, but she stopped him. Wait. Her voice softened. Just give it a minute. They sat there, close enough that their knees almost touched, the dark pressing around them. The rain sounded louder now, like the world had shrunk to this one room. He could hear her breathing, steady but not calm. Funny, she said after a moment. I used to like storms. They made me feel safe somehow. Safe. She nodded, her face barely visible in the half-light. When you can't see what's next, you stop pretending you're in control. He didn't know what to say, so he reached out, to steady her maybe, or to steady himself, and his hand brushed her arm. She froze, but she didn't move away. Their eyes met in the darkness. The air between them felt thin, breakable. Her lips parted slightly, as if she might speak. Instead, she reached up, fingers brushing his jaw, a feather-light touch that made his breath catch. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet. Just the unbearable closeness of two people standing at the edge of it. Then, footsteps. Evan's voice fainted from outside. Mom? You home? She pulled her hand back like she'd been burned. Noah stood too quickly, knocking into the coffee table. One of the photo albums slipped to the floor, a picture sliding out, the one of her laughing, sunlight in her hair. She stared at it, chest rising fast. He bent to pick it up, their hands brushing again, brief, electric. She whispered, "Go, please." And before he could answer, she turned away, pretending to fix the fallen lamp, her shoulders trembling just slightly. He left through the side door, rain soaking his shirt. Behind him, through the thin glow of the window, he could see her silhouette, standing still, one hand pressed to her lips. As if trying to hold in what almost happened, he hadn't seen her in days. Not since that night. The rain, the power cut, almost that never quite happened. He told himself it was for the best, that he was doing the right thing by staying away. But every time his phone buzzed, every time he passed their house, the memory came back like a pulse. Her touch, her breath, the way she'd whispered please without looking at him. He tried to forget, until the weekend barbecue. Evan had invited him like nothing had changed. "Mom's making that lemon chicken you like," he'd said. And before Noah could think of a reason to refuse, he'd already said sure. When he arrived, she was in the garden, laughing with one of the neighbors. That same calm composure she wore like perfume. But when she saw him, her laughter faltered. Just slightly. Enough for him to notice. The afternoon stretched on in fragments. Voices, music, the smell of grilled food. All a blur. He avoided her eyes, but felt them anyway. At one point, she brushed past him to grab something from the counter, her arm grazing his. "Careful," she said softly. Too softly. He turned then, too quickly. She was close, too close, and neither stepped back. "Why'd you come?" she asked under her breath. "Because he asked," Noah said. Her eyes flicked down. "That's the only reason?" He didn't answer. A silence bloomed between them, heavy and dangerous. Later, when the crowd thinned and Evan went to walk someone out, she found him again, by the sink, rinsing plates. Just to keep his hands busy. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "I know." "Then why are you?" He didn't turn around. "Because I can't stop thinking about you." The plate slipped in his hand, clattering against the sink. She didn't flinch. When he finally looked up, her reflection was in the window. Eyes bright, breath shallow. She came closer, slow, careful steps across the tile. The space between them vanished like it had never existed. "Don't," she whispered. "I'm trying not to," he said. Her hand rested on the counter beside his. Her hair brushed his sleeve, the faint scent of jasmine rising between them. "You don't understand," she said, almost pleading. "If Evan." "I don't care." She inhaled sharply, the kind of sound that gives away too much. "You should," she said, but it came out as a whisper, not a warning. Her voice trembled. "You make me feel like I'm still." She stopped herself, biting the rest back. He turned, closing the final inch between them. "Like what?" Her eyes flicked to his mouth. Then back up. "Alive," she said. For a second, neither moved. Then a sound. Footsteps on the back porch. Evan's laughter, getting closer. She froze, her hand still near his. Noah took a step back, heart hammering. Her lips parted, maybe to tell him to leave, maybe to say something she shouldn't. But the door opened before she could choose. And whatever she might have said, whatever he might have done, it hung there, between them, suspended in the breath before disaster. The next morning, everything felt off. Noah woke to a message from Evan. "Hey, you around? We need to talk." Those 4 words sat on his screen like a weight. By the time he reached the cafe, Evan was already there, restless, stirring his coffee even though it was cold. "You were at my place late the other night," Evan said, eyes narrow but voice steady. "When the power went out." Noah froze. "Yeah, you asked me to grab the drill, remember?" Evan nodded slowly. "Right. He hesitated. "Ted, my mom said you left in a hurry." She looked weird after. "I thought maybe something happened." Noah's throat went dry. Nothing happened. Evan watched him a beat too long, like he was testing the truth. Then he leaned back, tension easing. "Good. Just checking. She's been through enough crap. I don't want her dragged into something." Noah forced a smile, but his pulse was loud in his ears. He hadn't lied exactly, but it felt like he had. Later that day, he found himself outside their house again, not meaning to, but drawn there all the same. She opened the door before he could knock. Her expression said it all. "He talked to you?" "Yeah." Her hand lifted halfway, then dropped. "He heard us that night. Just a piece of it. Enough to ask questions." He exhaled. "Did you tell him?" "Of course not." Her voice was sharp, then softened. "But it scared me, Noah. You don't understand what this looks like." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Then tell me. She shook her head. You're a kid who doesn't know how much damage he can do. That word, kid, hit harder than she meant. His jaw tightened. Stop calling me that. Her eyes flashed. Frustration, fear, something else. You think this is simple? You think I don't wake up every day trying to convince myself that what I felt was just a mistake? He moved closer, voice low. You mean what you feel? Her breath caught. She looked away, but he saw her reflection in the glass door, trembling fingers gripping the edge of the counter, her shoulders rising too fast with each breath. I can't do this, she whispered. He stepped forward anyway, his hand almost reaching hers before stopping midair. Then tell me to go. Mean it. She didn't. Instead, she turned to face him, eyes shining, jaw tense. You should have told me how you felt that first day. Before you what? Her silence stretched. Then she said it, voice barely audible. Before I started feeling the same. For a moment, the room tilted. He reached out, but she moved past him, brushing his shoulder, the lightest touch, but it burned like contact. She stopped at the doorway, her back to him. He can't find out. Promise me. I promise, he said, though the word felt like a lie he already regretted. Outside, a car door slammed, Evans again. She turned, panic flickering in her eyes. Noah, she breathed. Almost a warning, almost a plea. And in that half-second, something shifted. The thrill that once felt tender now carried the sharp taste of danger. Because now, what had been secret wasn't safe anymore. Night again. The kind of night that carries silence like a secret. The house was dark except for a single lamp in the hallway. She'd left the door unlocked, not as an invitation, but as if she'd been too tired to decide otherwise. When Noah stepped inside, she was already waiting, sitting by the window, arms folded, her face half in shadow. You shouldn't be here, she said, but her voice didn't sound like a refusal. It sounded like someone rehearsing a truth they didn't believe. He stood still, the space between them charged and fragile. I know. She rose, slow, deliberate. The soft rustle of her blouse filled the silence. I asked you to stay away, she said. You did. And yet. He took one step forward. And yet. Her breath trembled, a quiet surrender. You're going to ruin both of us. He almost smiled, not out of arrogance, but ache. Then let me take the blame. Her eyes flicked up to his. You don't understand. I've spent years trying to hold everything together. If this breaks, maybe it already did, he said softly. That stopped her. She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. When she opened them again, something in her had changed, less guarded, more honest. He moved closer until they were a breath apart. Her hand lifted, hovered near his chest, then dropped. This isn't fair, she whispered. No, he said. But it's real. A long, trembling silence followed. The lamp hummed faintly. Outside, the wind shifted through the trees. She finally looked at him, really looked, and he saw everything in that glance. Fear, desire, guilt, and the quiet longing she'd tried so hard to hide. Say it, he murmured. Her lips parted, voice barely a breath. You already know. He reached out, fingers brushing her wrist, tentative, like touching something sacred. She didn't pull away. Her pulse fluttered under his fingertips. This has to end, she said, but her words broke halfway through. Then end it, he said. She tried, truly tried, to step back. But her body betrayed her before her will could catch up. Her forehead leaned against his chest, her voice small and raw. I hate that I want this. He closed his eyes, his hand resting gently at her back. So do I. For a long moment, neither spoke. The world shrank to the rhythm of their breathing, uneven, tangled, too close. Then, slowly, she pulled back. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with clarity. If we cross that line, there's no coming back. I know, he whispered. And you'd still do it? He didn't answer right away. His hand hovered near hers again, trembling slightly, before he let it fall to his side. No, he said finally. Not tonight. Something like relief, or heartbreak, passed through her. She nodded once, looking down, then back at him. Thank you. He turned toward the door. Before he left, she said his name, quiet, careful. When he looked back, she was still standing there, the lamplight tracing the edge of her face. Someday, she said softly, this won't feel like a mistake. He didn't trust himself to answer. The door closed behind him, not loudly, but with finality. And in the quiet that followed, both of them stood on opposite sides of that thin, invisible line, knowing it would never really disappear. Weeks passed quietly, as though the world had agreed not to mention what happened. No late-night visits. No glances that lingered too long. Just small, careful nods in passing when he came by for Evan. Gestures that said we remember without ever saying we regret. And yet, the air still carried it. That soft, unspoken pull that neither time nor distance could erase. One afternoon, he saw her again. Outside the grocery store, sunlight glinting off her car window. She was standing by the trunk, fumbling with a heavy bag. Without thinking, he crossed the parking lot. "Here," he said, taking it before she could protest. She smiled, the kind that reached her eyes this time. "You never change, do you?" He shrugged. "Guess not." There was an awkward pause, then a shared laugh that broke it. For the first time in what felt like forever, it wasn't strained. It was just easy. They loaded the last bag together. Their fingers brushed once, lightly, but this time it didn't feel forbidden. Just familiar, a small echo of what they'd been through. "You've grown," she said softly. He looked at her. "So have you." Her eyes lingered on his face for a heartbeat too long. "You're still too young for the kind of history we almost had." He smiled faintly. Almost. The word hung there, warm and weightless. They ended up walking together toward the cafe next door. No plan, just a quiet need to not say goodbye so quickly. The air smelled like coffee and early summer rain. She stirred her tea, and he noticed she still did that same nervous thing, circling the spoon even after the sugar dissolved. He grinned. "You still do that?" She glanced up, caught him watching, and for a second the air tightened, not with tension, but with recognition. "I don't think either of us came out of this the same," she said finally. "Would you want to?" Her gaze softened. "No. I think some people are meant to pass through your life just long enough to change its shape." He nodded. "You changed mine." She reached across the small table, resting her hand on his, just for a moment. "And you reminded me what it's like to feel alive again." They didn't need more than that. The silence that followed wasn't empty anymore. It was full of acceptance, warmth, the quiet understanding that some connections aren't meant to fade, only settle. When they stood to leave, he hesitated. Then, gently, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to her forehead. It wasn't a kiss of promise, but of peace. Her hand found his fingers intertwining once, then slowly letting go. "Take care, Noah," she said. He smiled. "You too." And when he walked away, he didn't look back, because he didn't need to. The memory of her touch stayed with him like sunlight after a storm. Soft, fleeting, but enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Slow burn romances, forbidden tension, or emotional second chances?